Welcome to this video from the Consultants Development Institute. I'm Carter McNamara, an instructor with the Institute and the presenter in this video. This video is entitled The Termination Phase of Consulting. The termination phase is the last phase of the consulting process. If this phase isn't done right, it can leave poor results, including bad feelings with you, your client, and the employees of the organization. Topics that we'll cover in this video are the goals of this termination phase, the options available to you and your client based on the results of the previous phase, evaluating project results. We'll cover various reasons that projects are terminated. There might be more reasons than you realize. We'll go over a checklist of activities to effectively terminate the project. We'll end by reviewing some considerations for ethically continuing your relationship with your client. This video focuses on highlights about terminating consulting projects. However, the texts for CDI's organizational consulting programs give more specific guidelines about doing those terminations. The goals of this termination phase are to ensure the most appropriate courses of action are taken based on the results of the project evaluation. Also, to tie up any loose ends or forgotten tasks in the project activities, and to be sure that there is an ethical closure, meaning that you either work to continue together or you depart, but in a respectful and professional manner. And finally, that there's psychological closure, a matter that's sometimes forgotten in consulting projects. Let's talk about various options based on the results of the project evaluation. There are generally three. The first option after evaluation is to continue the project, which might mean cycling back to an earlier phase in the process. If that decision is made by you and your client, then be very careful that you're not cycling back because more goals and requirements have been added to the project. That's sometimes called project creep, and it's to be avoided at all costs. When that occurs, you and your client should revisit the original consulting contract to include those expanded requirements. If you both decided to continue the project because your client really wanted somehow to keep a relationship with you, or you with the client, then be careful. That decision might be keeping you together because you've come to depend on each other beyond the scope of the contract. You might remember from the course Standards, Principles, and Risks in Consulting that it's unethical for a consultant to create an ongoing dependency of the client on the consultant. The second option after evaluation is that you might conclude that this project has come to a satisfactory ending and that your client wants you to start yet a new project. If so, then congratulations on your very good consulting. But be sure to restart the consulting process, including the contracting phase of consulting. The last option is that one or both of you have realized that you should terminate this project and your working relationship. There are a variety of reasons that projects are terminated. Let's look at them now. The first reason to terminate is that the project was satisfactorily completed. And that means that you and your client have concluded that the project was successful per the definition of success that you both agreed on earlier. Hopefully, the both of you also concluded that your client gained sufficient learning to accomplish that success themselves in the future. Another reason is what we'll refer to as technical. For example, you might terminate because you've both realized that the project now needs another kind of expertise. For example, you might have been hired to facilitate a strategic plan, but later on, you both realized that your client really needed leadership development before any kind of strategic plan could even be produced and implemented. Another technical reason is that sometimes projects are terminated because the specified termination date of the contract has arrived, so it's terminated, for example, by a legal or procurement department. Let's look at some more reasons to terminate. Projects can be terminated because of a sudden interruption. For example, If your client suddenly leaves the organization, then other leaders in the organization might not feel confident to assume a lead role in the project, so they decide to just terminate it. Or a new problem could occur in your client's organization, for example, an interruption caused by a natural disaster or by the loss of an investor. That might cause the project to suddenly terminate. Another reason to terminate is what we'll optimistically call irreconcilable differences. For example, if the quality of your working relationship with your client degenerates such that one or both of you no longer feels you can work together, or if you or your client somehow violates a term in your contract, thereby making it void. In any of these options that we've discussed, the termination should follow the terms in the project's contract, which is a legal document. If you and your client decide to terminate the project because it was satisfactorily completed, or for a technical reason, or because of a sudden interruption, then be sure to terminate it in a way that maintains a respectful relationship. Consider these guidelines. Both you and your client should complete a final project report. It might describe the outcomes of the project evaluation and your decisions as a result. The report might reference your change management plan. You both should arrange a final meeting in which you discuss the results of the project evaluation, including to acknowledge and celebrate the project's accomplishments. Be prepared to share each of your own versions of goodbye. That's very important. You should follow up the meeting with a formal correspondence that affirms your mutual agreement that the project is formally over. In that correspondence, you should mention the date that you both agreed as the official end date, if it is not the ending date on the signed contract. You should attend to administrative matters to close the project, for example, final invoices and closing the file for that client. You might consider stopping any further meetings about the project itself. That might seem a bit arbitrary, but it can actually be a very healthy practice to avoid the project creep and to avoid an ongoing unhealthy dependency between you and your client. If your client wants to continue meeting with you about the project, then consider cycling back to the contracting phase to start a new project. Let's talk a bit more about your relationship after the project. It's common that after a project has terminated amicably that you and your client start to miss your relationship, and you might even feel a bit sad. While it's usually unhealthy to maintain a relationship based on continuing unpaid assistance to the project, you and your client might find other ways to benefit from your interpersonal relationship. For example, you might collaborate to write an article about the project or to present at a conference about the topic. You might also remain professional friends, for example, to share suggestions about improving consulting or about organizational performance. You might even evolve to be informal friends. But if you do, be careful to maintain your professional boundaries. For example, if your client asks you to share your expertise to help your client with a problem, then you might respond, "Okay, but I'll have to put on my professional hat for a few minutes." Then help for a few minutes, but expect to do a contract if you are asked to do even more. Let's pause now to capture the learning from what you've heard in this video. In your learning journal for this program, go to the section entitled Reflections from the Readings and Videos and address the following 2 questions. They're intended to customize the contents of the video to you and your clients. You might discuss the questions with your peers. The questions are, what might be the most challenging aspect during the termination phase with the types of clients that you work with or want to work with? And next, how might you overcome those challenges with your clients? You can pause the video by clicking on the pause button at the bottom left corner of this video. It's the button with the 2 bars in it. After you've addressed the questions in your journal, then click on the button again to resume the video. And thank you for viewing this video from CDI. If you ever have any questions or want to share feedback during the program, simply send us an email to info@consultantsdevelopmentinstitute.org